cares about. I know what
Communism versus capitalism, bears versus eagles. Throughout history, the U.S. has carried an unsettling feeling of the expansion of Russian communism, and these unsettling feelings grew prominent in the years following up to the Cold War. The American's perspective has used the bear in a number of scenarios as a seemingly ferocious, seemingly manipulative character, and propaganda has depicted a strict opposition against this evil face, to quote our Star Wars President Reagan. But the Soviet Union perspective carries a complete different outlook to the situation, and we are here to tell you about it. Starting with the aftermath of World War II, previous territories under Nazi control had now become under Soviet influence, such as Poland and Hungary, which eventually fell by the revolutions of 1989. During Brezhnev's years of economic stagnation, and increased patronage had made for a corrupt system that called for dramatic reforms that eventually were intended to throw Gorbachev's perestroika and glasnost. There was the creation of a new parliament with competitive elections, and Article 6 was scrapped, allowing non-communist parties to be legalized. In 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed due to these radical reforms that worked to weaken the original communist platform in which the Soviet Union stood. Looking at economy, the arms race dried up the USSR to the point of bankruptcy, and the rigid centralizing planning had led to mismanagement and stifled innovation. Standard of living had fallen, and as Gorbachev introduced his reforms, it loosened the iron grip, which increased criticism of the government, allowing for citizens to voice their opinion. One example was the official newspaper of the Pravda that held reports about sloppy factory work and corruption. Globalization can be defined as the emergence of a freer, more technologically connected global economy, accompanied by a worldwide exchange of cultural, political, and religious ideas. Globalization proved to be disastrous in Russia due to the preconceived anti-American attitudes, the loss of prestige in the world as a global superpower, and the problem with Yugoslavia being a potential threat to their country. Positive aspects of globalization included the prominence of artists, writers, poets, and scholars.
The EU is Russia's biggest trade partner, and although relations are tense, they remain cooperating. However, trade fell by 37% in 2015 and 28% collectively between European nations. The invasion of Ukraine by Russia has made their relations with the EU very tense and difficult. Russia is acting very hostile towards the EU and is trying to undermine it by its promotion of populist parties, Russia's migration policy, and their economic crisis. Women had become exposed to a wide variety of jobs, and 70% of women were doctors and teachers, but were paid substantially less than men. Feminists actively engaged in anti-government riots against Putin, led by a feminist-dominated band. Following the fall of the Soviet Union, Russia had become a home to massive numbers of immigrants from former Soviet states. Russia has been at the center of transformative shifts in migration, while its government has worked to solidify a comprehensive migration management system.
In the era of Vladimir Putin, fighting terrorism has become a top priority for the Russian government. Moscow's crowded Dubrovka theater was seized by 40 to 50 militants on October 23rd. They had one demand, that the Russian military forces begin an immediate and complete withdrawal from the Chechnya, the war-torn region who longed for independence. Eventually, Russian forces pumped a chemical agent into the building's ventilation system to incapacitate the militants and start a rescue operation. In the end, at least 170 people died, including 130 of the nearly 1,000 hostages. Most appear to have died from the lack of medical care following the use of gas. After this crisis After this crisis, increased attention was placed on the Chechen rebels who continued their terrorist attacks on Russian soil, and Putin's government clamped down on even harder on these people. Vladimir Putin had a hardline position, and one of the reasons he was elected was his public vow that he does not negotiate with terrorists.
All I know now.